Discover the incredible hidden foods that inspired medieval peasants to thrive during famine years. Mary woke before dawn as the sun peeked over the horizon, casting a warm glow on the modest farm that held all her dreams. At 34, her hands were weathered but steady as she tended to the animals and the small patch of land that provided for her 2 children. Willow Creek was a town drowning in despair, where abandoned storefronts lined the streets like ghosts, and bills loomed like dark clouds overhead. Each day was a battle against financial burdens that seemed heavier than the weight on her shoulders. But Mary carried the vibrant memory of her grandmother's stories, tales of courage and resourcefulness from the Great Depression, lessons of survival through hunger and hardship that sparked a fierce resolve within her. On this particular morning, she rummaged through the dusty attic, her heart racing with the promise of discovery. Old, faded cookbooks whispered secrets from another time, filled with recipes that had once sustained medieval farmers through their darkest hours. The musty smell of age filled her nostrils, but it was a smell she welcomed as she flipped through the pages. Would these forgotten recipes carry her community forward? With excitement in her chest, she rushed to share her findings with her neighbors. "Let us bring these recipes back. We can create a cooking circle," she announced. The laughter and skepticism that followed cut through her like a sharp knife. "Medieval peasant recipes? Really, Mary?" echoed some voices, sour and dismissive. Their doubts stung, but deep down, she sensed that her passion could pierce through the thick layers of social barriers. Undeterred, she set the date and prepared the space, transforming her humble kitchen into a sanctuary. With each gathering, she invited them in with an open heart, and slowly, their initial doubts began to fade. The kitchen filled with the rich aromas of hearty stews and cornbread, as laughter and stories intertwined. The sound of simmering pots became a symphony of hope, and for the first time, Mary saw flickers of light in her neighbors' eyes. They were bonding over shared struggles, rekindling a long-forgotten sense of community. Then it happened, an unexpected scandal just hours before the Willow Creek Harvest Festival, the one Mary had envisioned to showcase their collective culinary heritage, ignited a firestorm of rumors. Whispers circulated like dandelion seeds, questioning the origins of her recipes. She felt the tension rising, the fragile bonds unraveling under the pressure of judgment and scrutiny. A tightness gripped her chest as doubt crept in. Would they abandon her now, at the brink of something beautiful? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mary took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar scent of cornbread that had begun to fill the air, grounding her as she prepared for the feast. The fear and anticipation in the air were almost palpable. As she looked around, she wondered if tradition and unity could withstand the storm brewing within their small town. With each passing moment, the question lingered: could she reclaim her identity and the community she sought to nurture? As the sun dipped down, the outcome felt just as uncertain as the dusk swirling around her. Would the festival bind them together or rip them apart? Mary stood by the kitchen window, the golden light casting long shadows across the room. The air was thick with anxiety and anticipation. She could hardly bear to think about the festival now looming before her, an event intended to unify her dwindling community. Instead, it felt like a tightrope walk over a chasm, the whispers of doubt pulling her ever closer to the edge. Outside, the sounds of preparation for the festival filled the air, laughter mingled with the unease that soon followed. Some of her neighbors were setting up booths, while others fussed over decorations. Yet Mary felt out of place, like a lighthouse keeper during a storm, trying to keep her lights steady against crashing waves. She recalled the looks on their faces when the rumors broke. The skepticism had frozen them in their tracks, transforming her initial excitement into a bitter brew of doubt and worry. Would they turn their backs on her when it mattered most? As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of orange and mauve, she heard a soft knock on the door. It was Anne, a single mother from down the road, who'd been one of the first to join Mary's cooking circle. "Can I come in?" Her voice was small, almost quivering with uncertainty. "Of course," Mary replied, her heart lifting slightly. They sat together in the cozy kitchen, the savory smell of simmering beans filling the air. Anne's eyes were bright with emotion. "Mary, I've been hearing things about those recipes. People are saying they don't trust them." Mary's heart sank. "I know it's hard to see it crumbling before my eyes. But these recipes, they're not just food. They're stories. They're us finding a way to survive. If we let the rumors get to us," she trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Anne's brow furrowed. "What if we made the festival a true celebration? Show them how we've turned the recipes into something beautiful? Let them taste the love and history behind each dish." A flicker of hope ignited within Mary. "What do you mean?" "If we bring everyone together, share our own stories about what these foods mean to us, we can transform their doubt into something vibrant." Mary took a deep breath. "You think it could work?" A determined smile crept onto Anne's face. "If they can see our passion, the love we put into cooking together, it might just bring them back." With renewed energy, Mary began brainstorming. She envisioned a potluck, where everyone would contribute, each offering a dish that spoke of their history. "Unity through food," she whispered, her eyes lighting with determination. The radio crackled in the corner, breaking through their conversation. A song about small-town resilience filled the spaces between the words, harmonizing with the hope rising in Mary's chest. There's still time before the festival. Mary grabbed a notebook and began jotting ideas, her heart beating faster with each new thought. "We'll share not just recipes, but our lives. My grandmother used to say food brings people together." As they mapped out their plan, the weight of doubt slowly began to lift. But Mary knew this was just the beginning. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, there would be hurdles. As they strategized, a single question lingered in her mind: would it be enough to change the tide of skepticism eroding the community she fought to embrace? The festival dawned brighter than she had anticipated, but the stakes felt higher too. Looking around, she wondered if this day would become a turning point or another chapter in Willow Creek's uncertainty. Would they show up with arms open, or would they let the shadows of doubt dominate their hearts? As the potluck doors swung open, Mary realized the moment of truth had finally arrived. Would this be the festival that brought them together, or the one that revealed deeper divides? Mary stood at the entrance of the bustling community hall, warily observing the scene unfolding around her. Tables bedecked with colorful cloths formed a bright patchwork across the room, while the tantalizing aroma of countless dishes wafted through the air. Laughter echoed in the corners, yet a thread of tension lingered, much like the storm clouds threatening to roll over the horizon. People streamed in, each cradling a dish that told a story. But despite the festival atmosphere, doubt gnawed at Mary. Would the familiar faces, once supportive and warm, truly understand the significance behind their shared kitchen traditions? She caught a glimpse of Mrs. Drummond, her longtime neighbor and the village skeptic, eyeing a dish of tamales with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Mary felt the familiar knot tighten in her stomach. "Hey, there's our kitchen queen!" and appeared beside her, bringing with her a burst of energy that steadied Mary's nerves. "Are you ready?" Mary managed a smile, though the weight of doubt still sat heavy on her chest. "Ready as I'll ever be." And checked her watch, her eyes sparkling. "Remember, we're not just presenting food. We're sharing pieces of ourselves, our stories, our culture. Let us show them what we're made of." "Right," Mary agreed, though her voice held less conviction than she wished. Together they meandered through the crowd, greeting neighbors who were sampling dishes. Hearing snippets of conversations, Mary felt the pulse of apprehension among her community. It was undeniable these recipes had become more than meals. They were symbols of their resilience and unity. As Mary pointed out her grandmother's cornbread to a group of hesitant onlookers, she struck a brave face. This recipe was passed down for generations. Each crumb holds a story, a memory of tough times and victory. She took a deep breath, summoning her courage. "I believe food can heal." The crowd gave her a lingering look filled with uncertainty before moving on. Mary's heart sank. She could almost hear the whispers behind her. What if this was not enough? Suddenly, a familiar face broke through the crowd. It was Samuel, the town's favorite storyteller, clutching a plate that was a vibrant mix of colors. "You all have to try my special dish today," he called, his enthusiasm infectious. "And I'll tell you the tale behind it." People gathered around, intrigued. With each mouthful, Samuel spun a tale of perseverance and hope. Mary watched as doubts began to melt away, replaced by laughter and connection. She found herself leaning in, caught up in the rich tapestry of their community stories, feeling a shift in the atmosphere. "Mary," and whispered, nudging her elbow. "Look!" The gathering grew, the dishes sparking lively conversations. Suddenly, Mary realized the bonds she longed for were within reach, blossoming like the dishes brought forth that evening. The festival began to pulse with life, and she felt hope clawing its way back into her heart. But just as she was about to dive into the energy of the crowd, a shadow draped over the doorway. It was Mrs. Drummond, arms crossed, surveying the scene with brows knitted. Mary's breath caught. Would this be the moment of reckoning that divided them further? Everything felt at a precipice. In that charged silence, a loud crash suddenly erupted from the back of the hall, stirring the crowd into nervous chatter. What was happening? Mary turned, heart racing, hoping against hope this evening wouldn't be the end but a new beginning. Would they find unity or witness havoc? The room erupted into chaos as the loud crash echoed throughout the hall. People jumped back, their laughter cutting off mid-sentence. Mary's heart pounded as she turned to see what had happened. A table, overloaded with dishes, had toppled over, sending pots of chili and trays of baked goods careening to the floor. "Oh no!" someone gasped, and a ripple of dread washed through the crowd. Mary rushed toward the scene, her pulse racing. She could see Mrs. Drummond now, not just standing at the threshold but frantically trying to help. What a surprising turn! The elderly woman's face was flushed with determination as she and others scrambled to pick up the fallen dishes. Mary felt a mix of fear and hope clashing in her chest. Would this disaster tear them apart or bring them closer together? "Mary, help us!" and cried, her voice strained. Mary could see the frustration among the group, the fear of losing what they had just begun to build. Clenching her fists, she jumped in. "Everyone, take a breath. We can do this together. Let us set things right." Her voice rang out, surprising even herself. It was a call to arms, her own version of a rallying cry. Faces turned her way, surprised by her sudden confidence. "Count on me!" shouted Samuel, grabbing what remained of his plate, not willing to let his story go unheard. He began pulling the dishes back onto the table, his warm grin somehow lifting the weight of the moment. Slowly, others followed, joining in this united effort to salvage the evening. Mary felt the energy shift, as if a current had flowed through the room. "I never thought I'd see the day Mrs. Drummond would help with a mess," someone quipped, breaking the tension. A ripple of laughter spread, and Mary caught Mrs. Drummond's eye. To her astonishment, the corner of the older woman's mouth turned up into the faintest smile. Mary felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of understanding, of shedding old grudges. As they returned the dishes to relative order, the panic began to fade, and people exchanged glances filled with the recognition of shared effort. Everyone got involved, sharing stories while working side by side. Each tale that floated through the air seemed to mend the small fractures in their community. "Let us toast to resilience!" Samuel shouted once they got everything upright again. He raised a cup filled with punch, and soon others joined in, laughter ringing louder. Mary took a moment to step back, watching the crowd. She felt a warmth creeping into her heart as she saw the connections forming, barriers tumbling down one by one. This mishap had inadvertently sparked a sense of unity she longed for. But just as the atmosphere began to transform into one of harmony, Mary's gaze shifted back to Mrs. Drummond, who had been observing with a pensive expression. The older woman had yet to join in the laughter. Her gaze locked onto Mary, intense and piercing. What new thoughts were brewing behind that gaze? Could this really be a moment of change, or was Mrs. Drummond still keeping her distance? As if sensing Mary's curiosity, the older woman approached her directly. "You think this was just a mess, don't you?" she asked, her voice low but firm. "But perhaps it was meant to be something more, something that could bring us all together." The quiet challenge in her words sent chills through Mary. What was Mrs. Drummond getting at? Would this festival ultimately forge a bond among them, or would it expose deeper divides? Mary's heart raced in the wake of Mrs. Drummond's words, the air thick with uncertainty. The older woman's serious demeanor contrasted sharply with the jubilant atmosphere generated by the crowd recovering from their mini-crisis. People were still laughing, toasting their resilience, blissfully unaware of the deeper currents swirling beneath the surface. "More?" Mary echoed, keeping her tone light, though she couldn't suppress the tremor in her voice. What did Mrs. Drummond mean? Could a spilled pot of chili really be a catalyst for change? "Life can be messy," Mrs. Drummond replied, her eyes glinting with something unspoken. "But how we deal with that mess defines us." She glanced at the crowd, a mixture of pride and apprehension on her face. "You've shown them how to work together, but will it last beyond tonight? Will they carry this spirit forward?" Mary felt a weight settle in her chest. She had aimed for unity, but the thought of maintaining it made her anxious. The crowd might seem united now, but what happened when they returned to their lives? Fear of old habits resurfacing crept in, shadowing her heart. "I want it to last," Mary insisted, biting her lip. "I want this night to be the start of something. A real change." Mrs. Drummond studied her as if searching for a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "Change requires courage, Mary. It's not just about this moment. It's about confronting the past." The intensity in the older woman's gaze made Mary's breath itch. Mary thought of the grudges that had clouded the town, dividing families and friends. She glanced back at the group, their smiles still bright, their laughter filling the room. But lurking beneath their joy were the memories of past disagreements, of years of resentment. "Maybe it starts with conversations," Mary suggested tentatively. "Real conversations. Maybe we need to dig a little deeper, be honest about what's been holding us back." Mrs. Drummond's expression softened. "You may be onto something, dear. But are you prepared for the truth? The truth can stir old wounds." Mary nodded, feeling a swell of resolve. "Yes. If we want to move forward, we need to face what's behind us. Together." As the smiles continued to shine and glasses clinked, Mary caught an eye across the room. And was laughing with Samuel, caught in a moment of shared joy, untouched by the weight of history. Could this really be what they all needed? A chance to break free from the chains of their past. Seeing the unity starting to form, Mary felt encouraged. The laughter enveloped her like a warm embrace, lending her strength. "Let us guide this night towards something more," she thought. Not just a shared disaster but a shared future. But just as hope began to bloom, the room fell into a hushed murmur as the lights flickered ominously and a thunderous crash sounded from outside. It was a reminder that the night's unity was still fragile, threatened by forces beyond their control. Mary turned toward the door, her heart in her throat. What could possibly be happening now? Was the promise of connection about to slip away in the face of another disaster? Mary's heart raced even faster as the hushed whispers grew around her. Shadows flickered on the walls from the dimmed lights and the murmurs of concern began to ripple like a stone dropped into a pond. What had happened outside? "Everybody stay calm," she called out, her voice shaky but determined, cutting through the anxious tension. She stepped away from Mrs. Drummond, her focus honing in on the crowd. A few faces turned toward her, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern. "What was that noise?" Someone shouted from the back, and the question hung in the air, thick and heavy. Mary glanced once more at Mrs. Drummond, who was now looking outside, her brow furrowing. Without a word, Mary made her way to the door, the crowd parting slightly, eyes glued to her every move. Each step felt monumental, like she was walking into the unknown. As she pushed the door open, a gust of wind rushed past her, carrying with it the sharp scent of rain-soaked earth. Outside, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. A fallen tree had crashed against a cluster of parked cars, their metal frames an alarming sight under the flickering streetlights. A few townsfolk were already rushing towards the chaos, assessing the damage. "Oh no," she murmured, gripping the door frame. Instinct kicked in, and she called out to the nearest person, a neighbor named Tom. "Tom! Is everyone okay?" He turned to her, eyes wide but steady. "I think so. It came down fast, but I don't see anyone hurt." Relief washed over her, but the night's light-hearted spirit felt like it had just shivered under a dark cloud. As more people poured outside, Mary rallied her thoughts. She moved closer to the scene of destruction, noting the worried faces that surrounded her. "Let us check the cars. Make sure nobody was in them," she urged. This was a moment of truth, a chance to prove that their unity could grow stronger, even in the face of adversity. The crowd sprang into action, some helping to lift debris, others making calls for emergency services. Mary found herself alongside Anne and Samuel, their collective adrenaline pushing them forward. "Mary!" Anne shouted, her eyes bright with urgency. "Help me over here!" They worked side by side, adrenaline igniting a fierce determination in their hearts. The darkness was pressing in around them, but together they communicated well, voicing commands, reassuring one another. Each small victory felt like a glimmer of hope. But as they cleared the wreckage, something caught Mary's eye, a small wooden box, splintered and half buried in the dirt. She knelt beside it, curiosity sparking in her chest. What was it doing here? Holding her breath, she pulled it free, its surface scratched but intact. "I found something!" she exclaimed, holding it up for the group to see. Her voice cut through the night's tension, drawing eyes toward her. "What is it?" Samuel asked, stepping closer. Mary brushed off dirt, revealing faded engravings on the box, a symbol she didn't recognize but sensed was important. As she opened it, the hinge creaked, revealing an assortment of old postcards, each one depicting the town from years past. The crowd fell silent, drawn in by the unexpected discovery. It was a fragile connection to their shared history. "Maybe this is a sign," Mrs. Drummond's voice whispered in her mind. But the moment was interrupted by another loud crash. This one came from deeper within the gathering darkness. Was it another falling tree, or something more sinister? Horror mingled with intrigue as people glanced nervously at one another. Excitement and unease swirled within Mary. The night held unexpected challenges and mysteries. Could they turn the aftermath of this disaster into a catalyst for healing and understanding? Each heartbeat resonated with possibility and dread. As a strange energy filled the air, she felt something shift within her. What lay ahead would require courage. And it was only just beginning. Mary stared at the box, her heart pounding. The way the crowd focused on her felt surreal, as if she was holding a fragile thread connecting them all to the past. She could sense curiosity in the air, a communal breath held as they awaited the next moments. "What do those postcards say?" Anne asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the quiet spell they were all under. Mary turned the postcards over, one by one, studying the images closely. Each card bore glimpses of the town from a time long gone, a bustling marketplace filled with laughter, children playing by the river, the local church basking in sunlight. "They look like old memories," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. Samuel edged closer, leaning in to get a better look. "There's a story in every one of these," he said, his eyes lighting up with determination as if the weight of their recent calamity didn't matter as much anymore. "Maybe this represents what we've lost," Mary thought aloud. "But also what we can rebuild." Her mind raced with possibilities, the spirit of their town woven into each postcard, a reminder that they had weathered storms before. But the feeling of hope was cut short when a louder crash echoed through the darkness, closer this time. A shiver ran down her spine. The crowd jumped, instinctively moving back, eyes scanning the shadows. "What was that?" someone cried, panic creeping back into the atmosphere. Mary's mind raced. "We need to make sure everyone's safe," She launched into action, rallying the group without thinking. Let us stick together. We'll check the area. Fingers entwined with her neighbors, Mary led the way through the dimly lit street. The storm still rumbled overhead as trees swayed uneasily, whispering secrets of their own. She felt the strong pulse of community, but anxiety thrummed beneath it, a mixture of concern and fear that threatened to split them apart at the seams. Every step deeper into the night felt like walking on thin ice. Just a bit further, and they reached a cluster of trees, and that's when Mary noticed something else, a figure darting just out of reach of the flickering lights. A chill crept into her bones. It wasn't just the temperature that was dropping. Did anyone else see that? She whispered, her voice barely escaping her lips. The uneasiness settled over them again, and she felt all the eyes around her shift nervously, uncertainty hanging like a thick fog. What should we do? Anne asked, her voice trembling. Let us not panic, Mary urged, emboldened by a flicker of resolve. We'll check it out together. We need to know what's going on. Steeling herself, she took a breath, remembering the postcards and the stories of resilience they contained. Just ahead, another crash rang out. Was it the same sound, or had something else fallen victim to the night? Whatever was hiding in the shadows, it felt like the truth was lurking just out of sight. And as the wind howled, Mary knew that this was only a fraction of what they were about to uncover. The night held secrets that could either bind them closer or tear their community apart. As she took another step forward, a sense of foreboding lingered in the air. What waited for them in the dark? The answers could change everything. Mary's heart raced as she moved closer to the shadowy figure. The rest of the group huddled around her, a solid wall of warmth and fear. The storm put jagged edges on the light, creating a distorted dance of shadows that obscured everything in front. She strained her eyes, just trying to make sense of what lay beyond their dim circle of safety. Stay together, stay close, she breathed, feeling the pulsing anxiety in the grip of her neighbor's hands. And squeezed her fingers tighter, and Samuel leaned in, all eyes locked on the darkness. They needed to know what haunted the perimeter of their community, and Mary wouldn't let fear win. On the count of 3, she whispered, heart full of vulnerable bravery. 1, 2, 3. They surged forward, the glow of their flashlights piercing the inky dark. There was nothing. Just an empty clearing choked with damp mist, echoing the wind's plaintive cries. Suddenly, something tumbled from the trees behind them, catching the light for an instant. It was a cardboard box, partially crushed, almost forgotten. The crowd gasped, collectively leaning in, curiosity peeking over the sense of danger. Mary felt the growing buzz, a shared understanding that this could be something significant. Is it more postcards? Someone murmured, but as Mary knelt to inspect it, the air felt different. The box held more than paper, it contained remnants of a world they once knew. Broken trinkets, pieces of pottery, and a tattered journal, the pages weathered with time. She hesitated, flipping it open and revealing a scrawl of fading letters. The ink seemed to leap off at her, words of hope, struggles, and dreams penned in desperation. It's a diary, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Someone's story. It might tell us about their life here, about the town. And leaned over, peering at the fragile pages like it held the answers to all their sorrows. Can you read it? Mary's fingers trembled over the text, the lives captured in ink giving life to the silence around them. It talks about the storms, the people gathering after the floods, how they came together to rebuild, she read, her heart swelling. The wind howled, but Mary's voice stayed steady, resonating with a shared sense of purpose. This could be our way forward. If they could do it, so can we. A ripple of murmurs washed through the gathered crowd, voices rising above the storm and chaos. The realization spread like wildfire: this was not just their history, it was the blueprint for their future. Yet just as hope began to bloom, the sudden snap of a branch broke the moment. A rapid rustle erupted from the trees, and icy fingers of dread twisted in Mary's gut. Something, or someone, was lurking nearby. Fear clawed at her resolve, and she spun around, heart pounding anew. What's out there? She whispered urgently, scanning the darkness once more. But before anyone could answer, the ground beneath them shook, and the trees creaked ominously. It felt as if the night itself had come alive, ready to unveil its final secret. Mary's grip tightened on the diary as uncertainty roared back, far louder than the storm. What if it's more than just an animal? What if... She hesitated, the words hung heavy in the air, but everyone could feel it. The mystery stretched far beyond the postcards and the diary. In that moment, something shifted. The shadows felt denser, as if holding their breath alongside the villagers. What are we really up against? She murmured to herself, feeling the weight of their quest settle heavily on her shoulders. The answers lay just beyond their circle of light, but what if they weren't ready to face what awaited them? And as the wind howled a morbid tune, Mary realized this was just the beginning. Would they find courage in the face of the unknown, or would the strife of their past pull them back into darkness? The group stood frozen, eyes wide, breaths held tight as the unsettling sounds around them swelled like a chorus of ghostly whispers. Mary could feel Anne's fingers digging into her arm, their knuckles pale against the creeping darkness. The diary felt heavier now, like an anchor pulling her deeper into uncertainty. Mary stepped back instinctively, her mind racing. We need to move. We can't stay here, she urged. The urgency in her voice snapped the group into action. They turned, flashlights darting like frantic fireflies, illuminating the damp earth and the fog that twisted unnaturally around the trees. Samuel looked left, then right, squinting into the dark. But where do we go? We can't just run blindly. Panic laced his words, and the crowd behind him began to murmur restlessly. Mary swallowed hard, shaken but determined. We find the road. Head back towards the old mill. There are more of us there. It felt like a fragile thread of hope, but she clung to it. They had navigated darkness before. They could do it again. They took off, boots splashing against puddles as they moved. Each step was swallowed by the night, but as they darted forward, Mary felt a flicker of resolve forming in the pit of her stomach. They'd already faced loss and fear. They would not let the shadows claim them now. The wind howled again, sharper this time, carrying distant echoes of despair that mingled with their hurried breaths. What if it's not just an animal? What if it's something more? Anne's voice trembled. Mary felt that question wrap around her like a cold shroud. The diary had spoken of storms and rebuilding, but what if they were facing a storm of a different kind? She cast a glance over her shoulder. The trees loomed ominously, heavy with secrets. Suddenly, another sound pierced the night, a thud, followed by a low growl. Mary's heart dropped. Run! She yelled, adrenaline surging as they sprinted, urgency fueling their every stride. The group surged forward, moving as one, driven by fear and the fleeting hope of safety. Out of breath and with hearts racing, they stumbled upon a clearing where the remnants of the old mill remained. It was a haunting sight, the skeletal structure silhouetted against the swirling mist. Mary could almost hear the memories echoing through its broken walls, the laughter of children, the hum of daily life. Now, it stood under the spell of the storm, waiting to bear witness to whatever haunted the night. Are we safe here? A voice called out, as uncertainty lingered in the air. Mary shook her head, chest rising and falling rapidly. Not yet. We need to secure it. Make sure nothing can follow us. Every instinct screamed at her, desperate to protect her friends. As they moved closer, a chill washed over her, strong as the gusts of wind. For an instant, it felt as if the world itself had paused to observe them. She looked at her friends, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of flashlights, fear mirrored in their eyes, but also something else, determination. They were in this together, and that made all the difference. But then came a light, flickering from within the mill, flickering like the last candle of hope in a storm. What is that? Samuel whispered, eyes wide with mounting dread. Should we check it out? Anne asked, her voice almost lost against the wind. Mary hesitated, her mind racing. The tales in the diary spoke of bravery and heart, but was it courage that beckoned them forward, or was it curiosity that could lead to their demise? So what do we do? She thought, heart pounding. As the wind howled louder and shadows danced menacingly around them, Mary made her decision: either step into that flickering light, or turn away forever. The weight of their past pressed down on her as she whispered, "We go." together. The night had only begun to unveil its truths, and all Mary could ask herself was what secrets were hidden behind the old mill's crumbling walls. As they moved toward the unknown, the very air shifted, pregnant with an unsettling anticipation for what would come next. As the group stepped cautiously toward the flickering light, Mary felt the collective pulse of her neighbors beside her. The old mill, with its haunted memories and weathered walls, stood as a testament to their town's resilience and perhaps a gateway to something even greater. Inside, the air was thick with dust, echoing faint whispers that seemed to taunt them from the shadows. The light, soft yet insistent, beckoned in the corner, illuminating something unexpected, an old kitchen filled with rusted pots and tarnished silverware, remnants of meals long forgotten. Mary stepped closer, driven by curiosity and an indescribable need to connect their past to the future they yearned to build. "What is this place?" An's voice trembled, a mix of fear and fascination. "It's like a time capsule," Mary breathed, her eyes widening as she took in the sight. It felt like the old recipes her grandma had shared, hints of love and community interwoven with the food they once cherished. Suddenly, a voice broke through her reverie. This must be where the town's heart once lived. It was Samuel, his eyes aglow, reflecting the flickering light. "If we can reclaim this, we can reclaim ourselves." Mary turned to face her friends, their expressions shifting from dread to determination. This wasn't just about facing fears anymore. It was about rediscovering who they truly were beneath the layers of hurt and history. She could feel the lessons of the postcards and diary flooding back to her, a reminder that in the darkest moments, there can also be light. "Let us clean it up," she proposed, her heart pounding with excitement. "We can turn this space into a kitchen for our cooking circle. We'll revive the community here, where it all began." An's eyes sparkled with renewed hope. "Yes. We can host events, share meals, and write our own stories here." Before long, everyone jumped into action. They grabbed brooms and dust cloths, uprooting the ghosts of neglect as laughter bubbled up and mingled with the dust motes dancing in the air. Each stroke was an act of commitment, a promise to one another that they would build something real, together. Outside, the storm began to recede, giving way to a waning moon that cast a silvery glow through the broken windows. Light filled the space, chasing away shadows both literal and metaphorical. Hours passed, and the mill transformed. Mary stood back, her heart swelling as she surveyed the work. The old kitchen shone with potential, every corner brimming with hope. They had reclaimed more than just a building, they had rekindled their spirits, and rebuilt connections that had long lingered on the edge of silence. As the sun began to rise, spilling golden rays across Willow Creek, a sense of purpose enveloped the group. The festival now represented not just individual recipes but their collective journey, the culinary roots of a community once fragmented, now solidly entwined. "Today feels like the dawn of something new," Mary said, her gaze shifting between the once estranged faces that now felt like family. There were no more whispers of doubt. Just laughter, shared stories, and the warmth of renewed connection. In that moment, the pain of the past felt far behind them as they forged into a bright future, one where meals were not just sustenance but vessels for love and unity. They no longer stood alone, they stood together, and as Mary looked at her neighbors, she realized she wasn't just a storyteller. She was a bridge not only to their past but into an inspiring future forged in unity and strength. "Let us share our stories," she proposed, her voice now steady and filled with conviction. "Let us bring our community back to life. Who's with me?" The crowd erupted in agreement, laughter bursting forth like the first blooms of spring, brightening the air with promise. From that day forward they would bring hope, resilience, and love into every recipe, each meal a celebration of their shared journey. Mary knew deep down, they had found their way home. If you felt the transformation in Mary and her community, then this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you never miss another story as impactful as this one. Leave a like now, your support is vital to keep our community growing stronger. Comment below your thoughts and feelings about this ending, how it resonates with you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to see this beautiful transformation. Let us keep the spirit of unity alive.